You know, for almost as long as there has been a United States, there has been a ship called Independence.
From aboard the USS Independence.
The U.S. aircraft carrier Independence.
And we have one of the largest carrier forces in the Pacific that we've had for many years.
Maylee, CNN, aboard the USS Independence.
U.S. forces based in Japan.
Led by the USS Independence.
At 37, she is the oldest ship in the U.S. Navy.
Barry Peterson, CBS News, on the USS Independence off the coast of Taiwan.
Far, we've been traveling far. Without a home, but not without a star. Free, only one huddled close.
Welcome aboard USS Independence, America's only forward-deployed aircraft city of 5,000 that is able to travel more than 500 miles a day. Independence is a self-contained warship, making her one of the most powerful, mobile, and flexible weapon systems mankind has ever. More than 185,000 sailors and Marines over the last 30 years, and has traveled over 4.5 million miles. This is America's sword and America's shield. This is Independence.
Oh, the shark bait has such teeth, dear. Early white.
The Big Apple,
Just
1959. The Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series. Television was king. Eisenhower was president. And the Cold War was at its peak. On January 10th, USS Independence became the latest and greatest in America's line of naval and air defense. This Forstall-class attack aircraft carrier, known as CVA-62, became the 5th ship to bear the name Independence. After she slipped out of the Brooklyn Naval Shipyard, Freedom's flagship was first called on by President John F. Kennedy during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Her rapid response provided a strong, visible reminder of U.S. determination and resolve as a key participant in the U.S. naval blockade of Cuba.
There's something happening here.
Times drastically changed in the early to mid-1960s. Tensions in Southeast Asia were increasing, and the result was the United States' involvement in the controversial Vietnam War. In 1964 and 5, Independence was the first carrier on the scene and deployed for more than 7 months, including a continuous 100 during her deployment. As the 1970s rolled around, President Richard Nixon was the first commander-in-chief to visit the decks of Indy, delivering his annual Armed Forces Day address in 1973. The latter part of the decade remained quiet for Indy and her crew, until 1982, when Independence provided critical support to the multinational peacekeeping force in Lebanon. That very next year, aircraft from the After being home-ported in Norfolk, Virginia for 28 years, she swung around the tip of South America in 1988 to berth in her new home port of San Diego, California. After Indy's first complete overhaul in Philadelphia in the late 80s, she started the new decade by immediately responding to tensions increasing in the Middle East. President Bush then called upon Independence to monitor Iraqi aggression during Operation Desert Shield. She was the first aircraft carrier to enter the Arabian Gulf since 1974. Indy remained on station for more than 90 days, re-establishing U.S. presence in the region. Westward to take charge as America's only forward-deployed aircraft carrier in 7th Fleet's home port of Yokosuka, Japan, and embarking Carrier Air Wing 5. Before settling into her new surroundings, she was once again called upon to return to the Arabian Gulf in support of Operation Southern Watch and numerous bilateral exercises, including RIMPAC 94. In 1995, Indy continued to remain at the tip of the spear while bestowing another unique honor. On June 30th, she proudly "Don't Tread On" would take Indy into one of the most publicized and visible years yet, 1996. The start of 1996 was a numbers, completely ahead. The bitter cold winter months in her home port of Yokosuka, Japan, allowed sailors Independence was only 3 days in late January during Operation Tiger Cruise. Friends, fathers, and sons traveled around the block or around the world to take part in this once-in-a-lifetime experience, sailing with a carrier at sea. Tours, flight operations, static displays, photo opportunities, and traditional Navy chow were all part of this inside look into the real Navy.
It's hard to rely on my good intentions when my head's full of things that I can't mention. It seems I usually get things right, but I can't understand what I did last night. When I miss so much that requires attention, I have to laugh at myself sometimes, and I can't see that I'm not blind. This little relief, give us a breathe. Oh, for all the things I've left behind, I'm positive that I'm not blind. Not afraid things won't get better, but it feels like this is gone forever. You have to cry with your own blue tears, have to laugh with your own good cheer. And it's hard to rely on my good intentions when my head's full of things that I can't mention. Seems I usually get things right, but I can't understand what I did last night. This little relief, give us a breathe. Oh, and imagining the world outside, I'm positive that I'm not blind. I can't be hard on you, 'cause you know I've been there too. Learned a lot of things from you. Oh, life gives little release.
The temperatures outside might have been cold, but inside, Indy's engines were not. Just a few days later, after the sea trials and Tiger Cruise, Freedom's flagship headed back out into the open waters of the Yellow Sea and South Korea on February 9th. This time, it was for exercise Valiant Usher. This amphibious exercise off the coast of Korea gave Indy sailors an opportunity to prepare themselves for any given situation. But before the battle group could head for the warmer waters of the Philippines, Indy had to have a visit in its first port of 1996, Busan, South Korea. Keeping his promise to return to the Philippines since the November '95 port visit was canceled, Captain Pilati steamed southward for a port visit in Manila. These next 5 days of liberty in this quickly turned after Indy's departure.
Sun beat down, I had the radio on, I was driving, trees went by, little so good, like anything was possible. Hit cruise control and rub my eyes. The last 3 days, and the rain was unstoppable. It was always cold, no sunshine. Yeah, running down a dream that never would come to me. Working on a mystery, going wherever it leads. Running down a dream. The sky grew dark. I put the pedal down to make some time. There's something good waiting down this road. I'm picking up whatever's mine. I'm running down a dream that never would come to me. Working on a mystery, going wherever it leads. Running down a dream. Yeah, I'm running down a dream that never would come to me. Working on a mystery, going wherever it leads. I'm running down a dream.
Few Indy sailors were watching the news while on liberty. As they were enjoying their time off, a situation was brewing several hundred miles north. About 90 hours before returning to Yokosuka, Washington, D.C. made the decision to return Indy to one of the hottest spots in the world at that time, Taiwan. Chinese and Taiwanese tensions were at its highest level in decades, and Indy was sent a mere 200 miles east of it. China was participating in live-fire missile tests in the Taiwan Straits, grabbing the attention of Indy's battle group, the United States, and the entire world. Within just a few days, hordes of media from ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and even the UK's BBC flew out to Indy to get a first-hand look at our role in the contingency. As one sailor said, the world's eyes are upon us.
Its war games off Taiwan right through Taiwan's presidential election, March 23rd. The blunt message to Taiwan: don't even think about declaring independence from China. President Clinton says he takes, quote, a dim view of these Chinese moves, and the U.S. is sending back a message of its own. From the waters off Taiwan, correspondent Barry Peterson begins our report.
The USS Independence is reassurance for Taiwan and fair warning to China that American Top Guns are only 30 minutes from the exercise area.
If there's trouble, how prepared are you? How fast can you scramble? We're always ready.
When the carrier USS Nimitz and its battle group arrive here next week, it will be one of the largest deployments of American naval forces in this area since Vietnam. And the eavesdropping is already underway. It was the Americans who monitored today's fourth Chinese missile firing.
The sensors that are embodied in the battle group give us the ability to monitor much of the activity that's going on within the straits, including the missile firing exercises.
The Chinese say the presence of so many American ships could inflame the situation. On the Independence, the expectation is that cooler heads will prevail.
We're only a couple hundred miles off the coast of Taiwan, and I mean, we're training every day for the combat mission we would do if in fact it came to that.
At the moment, the Independence is America's eyes and ears watching the Chinese Communist exercises. But if there is trouble, and should the Americans get involved, then the Independence instantly becomes America's big stick. Barry Peterson, CBS News, on the USS Independence off the coast of Taiwan.
China's bellicose actions in the Taiwan Strait are just the latest in a series of moves that have angered the United States. China has allegedly sold nuclear weapons technology to Pakistan and equipment to make chemical weapons to Iran. The U.S. charges that China is not stopping the pirating of copyrighted U.S. goods like compact discs. And a recent report from the State Department cites continuing human rights abuses by the Chinese.
Indications.
Liberty or doubt, what we so proudly hail. Once you provoke her, rattling of a tail. Never begins it, never but once engaged, never surrenders, showing the fangs of rage. Send up from me. So be it. Fret no more. To secure pieces. To prepare for war. So be it. Settle the score. Touch me again with the fortitude of the evermore.
We have capability of taking. Going out there of the strike package.
Love it or leave it. She with the deadly bite. Quick as the blue tongue. Walked as a lightning strike. Shining with brightness. Always in surveillance. Never close. Emblem of vigilance. Ooh, no, no, no. Send up from me. So be it. Fret no more. To secure pieces. To prepare for war. So be it. Settle the score. Touch me again with the words that you will hear evermore. Don't tread on me.
Aircraft carrier Independence already poised about 100 miles east of Taiwan.
The United States is moving additional carrier groups led by the USS Independence.
Officials warn that if Taiwan is attacked, there could be grave consequences.
Ambiguity with dictatorships doesn't work.
Beijing should know, and this will remind them, that while they are a great military power, that the premier, the strongest military power in the Western Pacific, is the United States. Is the United States.
So be it. Fret no more. To secure pieces. To prepare for war. Liberty or doubt. What we so proudly hail. Once you provoke her. Rattling of a tail.
The once concerned families and friends watched as Indy sailors returned home heroes. She was called upon and provided. All of the training, drills, and exercise prove that Indy sailors and their ship can handle any given situation. And that deserved a thanks from the President of the United States, not by note or by phone, but personally. Slowing down was the last item on Indy's list of to-dos. Why, the Commander-in-Chief, the First Lady, Secretary of State, White House Chief of Staff, and former Vice President and American Ambassador to Japan, Walter Mondale, will be visiting Independence, and soon. The crew had to pull together quickly for a successful and unforgettable experience.
United States arriving.
Please join me in giving an old-fashioned American welcome to our Commander-in-Chief, the 42nd President of the United States of America, President Bill Clinton.
I think you got a real future with this, haven't you? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. We love you, Mr. President. Thank you. Your last deployment off Taiwan helped to calm a rising storm. Without firing a single shot, you reassured nations all around the Pacific. With the quiet power of your example, you gave the world another example of America's power and America's character. And I thank you especially for that. Make no mistake, there is still a threat that war could return. Without you, the stability and prosperity of Asia could be in danger, and therefore so could America's. Old rivalries could break out again. A rogue state could get the wrong idea. A changing region could become unstable. But with you here, Asia is more secure, and so is America. Let me say that I am well aware that we see that excellence every day in so many ways. Here, from the pilots and everyone on the flight deck to the boiler technicians, from the mess cooks to the storekeepers, to the officers on the bridge, it takes every single one of you working together as a team to keep this ship on the flight line, to land some of the best aircraft in the world on what looks to their pilots like a postage stamp in the sea. Our nation is in your debt now and forever. God bless you, and God bless America.
Freedom's flagship and her mighty battle group were now ready to head south again for the Philippines before participating in one of the largest maritime joint exercises in the world, known as RIMPAC. But before Indy gets to work participating in RIMPAC, it was time to hit the port that was so nice we hit it twice: the city of Manila in the Philippines. After Indy's second successful port visit to Manila this year, which included an early departure typhoon scare, she was ready to join the Kitty Hawk Battle Group and several other countries in the RIMPAC exercises. These Rim of the Pacific nations, which included South Korea, Japan, Australia, Canada, and Chile, received much attention from the media around the world.
In the ocean waters off Hawaii this weekend sits an armada representing the naval and air forces of several countries. The sailors and Marines are winding up their biannual RIMPAC exercises with some real wartime scenarios. With precision timing, aircraft operations on the flight deck of the USS Independence require the coordination of all the performers. More than 200 men are involved in the many specialties that lead to the successful takeoffs and landings of man and machine. On this day, the nearly 5,000 men serving on board the oldest ship in the U.S. Navy are engaged in real war training scenarios about 45 miles northwest of the island of Kauai with their counterparts on the USS Kitty Hawk and the navies of several other countries.
And at 3:30 this morning, we had a launch of several of our airplanes, in fact 3 of them, to begin monitoring and establish a tactical picture for what was happening with the Kitty Hawk Battle Group. We evaluated some F-18s that might have been airborne at the time and could be posing a threat to the Independence Battle Group, and we commenced our alert launches at that time.
The Indy has teamed up with the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force for RIMPAC 96. They're training with and against the Kitty Hawk Group and the navies of Canada, Chile, Australia, and South Korea.
It would be a real tragedy if we came all this way, devoted all this preparation. Everyone used all their best tactics and skills, and we never met each other. So there are intended scripted exercises that ensure that we do encounter each other so that we do have the opportunity to achieve the training objectives that we've set for ourselves.
There are no losers in these mock war games. There are only learning experiences to make sure all the forces are battle ready should they become involved in some international hostilities. The Indy is operating under the watchful eye of Captain David Pilati.
We train the same way we're going to fight. And the more we train, the more intensely we train, the better prepared we are. And the other thing is, when you get into actual combat, you will focus out on fears and different things that you should not be thinking about because you're so well trained.
The more than 40 ships involved in RIMPAC 96 are due to return to Pearl Harbor beginning tomorrow. The Indy is due back Tuesday or Wednesday. This year's games were marred by the accidental shoot-down of a U.S. jet by a Japanese destroyer. The U.S. has accepted Japan's apology for the incident, which remains under investigation.
Thank you for joining us. The world's largest military exercise has come to a close. More than 40 ships are docking at Pearl Harbor, bringing tens of thousands of military personnel to the islands. News 4's Jill Kuramoto explains what this means to Hawaii's economy.
45 ships, 200 aircraft, and about 30,000 sailors, airmen, Marines, soldiers, and Coast Guardsmen are coming to dock at Pearl Harbor.
It feels really great. Land's feeling like it's moving a little bit, but it feels great to be on land.
They've been at sea for the last 31 days, taking part in the multinational military exercises called RIMPAC.
The experience of the ship is long hours, sometimes 21-hour days, 22-hour days. A lot of flight quarters, a lot of con reps, unreps, vert reps.
The exercise scenarios don't portray any situations currently happening in the real world, but do include valuable realistic training to all participants.
It's very important. As you know, they're our allies, and it's very important that we keep ally relations up and we keep the functions going and stuff so they can work with us better and we can work with them better, and it's just a smoother operation in case we regret have to ever go to war.
The value of these biennial exercises means even more to Hawaii. The thousands of military personnel arriving here have 5 more days in port, and they have plans. And from the looks of the nearby ATM, they have money to spend.
The ship's MWR, they have some tours planned for the crew to take. Some other parts of the crew, they're going to go down to Waikiki, go to the bars and the beach and stuff like that.
The Navy estimates Hawaii stands to make about $20 million in revenue from the sailors and shipyard work, not to mention the family and friends that came to Hawaii to greet their loved ones on shore. RIMPAC 96 will most likely be remembered for the accidental shooting of a U.S. fighter jet by a Japanese destroyer about halfway through the exercises. Military officials at this point will only say that the incident is still under investigation. This is the 15th RIMPAC exercise since 1971. Navy officials say plans for RIMPAC 98 are already underway. Jill Kuramoto, News 4.
As RIMPAC drew to a close, Independence continued to steam eastward for the Hawaiian paradise of Pearl Harbor after a long 35 intensive straight days, 6 time zones, and 6,000 miles at sea. Carrier Air Wing 5 also said farewell to one of its oldest squadrons, the Eagles of TAC Squadron 115. This squadron was part of the Navy's depletion of the A-6 intruders. RIMPAC proved to be another success for Indy's long list of accolades, and the rewards were 5 days in a port that many people spend thousands to see. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on the island of Oahu. After covering the deep blue waters of the Pacific Ocean, CV-62 was ready to return to her home port for some rest and rehabilitation, both for the ship and the crew. Carrier Air Wing 5 changed command from Captain Brian Calhoun to Captain Richard Malden at the Air Wing's home port facility in Atsugi. Captain's Cup kept Indy sailors busy and in the midst of some healthy competition. A traditional Japanese-style no-play entertained several hundred, and more than 816 personnel left the 95-degree weather in Japan and returned to the United States for leave. For those sailors who didn't go home, it was a good time to experience life in a land they temporarily call home.
Wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's sighing in her sleep. Brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening and it's usually quite loud. Our mum, she's so house proud. Nothing ever slows her down and a mess is not allowed. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house in the middle of our street. Something tells you that you've got to move in the middle of our. Father gets up late for work. Mother has to iron his shirt. Then she sends the kids to school. Sees them off with a small kiss. She's the one they're going to miss in lots of ways.
The hot August sun beats down on the metal hull of Indy as she sits in her berth number 12. It was also time to say goodbye to a captain which took Indy from the Persian Gulf to the Yellow Sea, from the Straits of Malacca to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Rear Admiral Select David P. Pilati left the I-5 team to her new commanding officer, Captain Tom S. Folin.
David P. Pilati III, United States Navy. Subject, Bupers Orders 1986, one directed by Reporting Senior, detached in August 1996 from duty as Commanding Officer, USS Independence, and report not later than September 1996 to Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Pacific Fleet, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, for duties as assigned.
I will now read my orders. From the Chief of Naval Personnel to Commander 7th Fleet, Yokosuka, Japan, Bupers Order number 0306, in the case of Captain Tom S. Folin, United States Navy, when directed by Reporting Senior, detach and report in August 1996 for duty in a flying status involving flying as Commanding Officer of USS Independence.
Sir, I stand relieved. Congratulations.
With a new commanding officer and many new crew members, Indy was prepared and ready to get those engines up and running. This time, for the all too familiar waters of the South China Sea for standard operational training. Pilots had to get requalified, systems had to be checked and tested, and all of this for what Indy is now famous for worldwide, her ability to respond as the tip of the spear.
Independence is going to win the Battle of this year.
After continuous operations, Indy sailors were ready to spend that hard-earned money they earned from being underway. And what better way to do that than in shopper's paradise, the island of Hong Kong.
I could escape this feeling with my China girl. I feel a wreck without my little China girl. I hear her heart beating loud as thunder. Slowly stars crashing. I'm a mess without my little China girl. Wake up in the morning with my little China girl. I hear hearts beating loud as thunder. I saw these stars crashing down. I feel tragic like I'm Marlon Brando when I look at my China girl. And I could pretend nothing really meant too much when I look at my China girl. I stumble into town just like a sacred cow. Visions of swastikas in my head, plans for everyone. It's in the way of my eyes. My little China girl, you shouldn't mess with me. I'll ruin everything you are. You know, I'll give you television. I'll give you eyes of blue. I'll give you a man who wants to rule the world. And when I get excited, my little China girl says, oh baby, just you shut your mouth. She says, she says,
The first few weeks of October that Indy was in Port Japan, the pace once again didn't slow down for a minute. Battle Force 7th Fleet changed hands, this time from Rear Admiral and soon-to-be Vice Admiral James O. Ellis to Rear Admiral Charles Moore. Guest speaker included the commander of U.S. Forces Korea, General Talleli.
I will now read my orders.
Battle Force 7th Fleet, hut 10, hut.
From Chief of Naval Personnel, Washington, D.C., to Commander Carrier Group 5. Subject, BUPERS Orders 2126, change of duty orders for Vice Admiral James O. Ellis, Jr., United States Navy. When directed by Reporting Senior, detach in October 1996 as Commander Carrier Group 5 and report for duty as Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Plans, Policy, and Operations, Washington, D.C. Captain Beckman, haul down my flag.
Haul down Rear Admiral Ellis's flag. Very well. Admiral, your flag is hauled down.
Very well.
Senior Chief Petty Officer Barry, the command senior chief, will present Admiral Ellis with his personal flag.
Admiral Moore, I am ready to be relieved.
Rear Admiral Charles W. Moore, United States Navy.
I will now read my orders. From Chief of Naval Personnel, Washington, D.C., to Joint Staff, Washington, D.C. Subject, UPERS Orders 2126, change of duty orders for Rear Admiral Charles W. Moore, United States Navy. When directed by Reporting Senior, detach in September 1996 and report to Commander 7th Fleet, Yokosuka, Japan, as Commander, Carrier Group 5.
With a new admiral on board, Indy wasted no time in port and returned to the Yellow Sea for yet another first in her long and prestigious history. This exercise, Full Eagle, is the first time an aircraft carrier participated in the Republic of Korea naval exercise. Following that was the largest bilateral joint maritime exercise between America and the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, known as ANNUAL-X.
Operation ANNUAL-X, as the name implies, is an annual operation that we conduct with the Japanese. Interoperability exercises so that the United States Navy, United States Air Force can operate in a combined and joint type atmosphere with both the Japanese Air Force, their Navy, and somewhat we get involved with some of their ground forces. We'll have approximately 100 ships playing in this exercise, which is a very big exercise for them. So almost all their ships will be out at sea during some time of the exercise. It's one of the exercises that cements our relationship, especially our militaries. It's very important to the region for security reasons to show that the United States is still involved and still out here and still active. The first portion of the exercise kicks off with a lot of air defense type exercises where there would be raids coming out from the mainland, simulating that they're attacking the Indy. And we'll have our cruisers out there. We'll have some of the Japanese ships in company with us, helping to defend against that. And of course, we'll have our own aircraft up there fighting the attack off. Well, I see annual X as something that continues on in the future. As I had said before, this is a big exercise for the Japanese. They bring out just about every ship they have for this. In the large context of the Pacific Rim, as the Pacific Rim becomes a much stronger and more important region in the world, especially if the economics are the way they're going right now, it's very important that the United States stay involved and stay in this area and show that we're committed to keeping the sea lines of communication open, to supporting democratic institutions and democracy, growth of democracy throughout the world, and I just see this continuing.
During the well-publicized exercises in the Sea of Japan, Indy hosted yet another famous face. The highest uniformed official in the Navy, the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral J. Johnson, and the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, ETCM John Hagen. They visited the Indy Battle Group and had a first-hand look at this famous ship called Indy.
Our Navy is 356 ships in size today. 356 is the magic number. And we have a force of over 500,000 of us. You, me, and 500,000 others. That's about 410,000 active duty and about 98,000 reserve. And I would tell you, one of the things I've really learned since I've been the CNO is that when we talk about a total force, active and reserve, working together, we really mean it. You know, the Navy and the Marine Corps, the naval service, is all about presence, it's all about forward deployment, and that's our business, and we ought to be very, very proud of the way we do that business. The rest of the world is counting on us, and you here out at the tip of the spear are integral to every bit of that every single day. So don't ever underestimate the importance of what you're doing out here, okay? One other thing, and that's what I call never stop learning, okay? Never stop learning. Sounds pretty simple, and it is. But I'll tell you, I've been doing this stuff for a long time now. And I guess when I became the CNO, there are lots of folks that thought, man, it must be nice. You know, he's got all the answers now. He's a boss. He's got it all. No questions. The truth of it is, I've never had more questions in my life since I've been CNO. But the wonderfulness in that is that every night when I go home, it just blows me away at how much I learned that day. I mean, blows me away. So if I can say that after doing this for about 3 decades, I would hope that each and every one of you could say it too. And I think if you reflect on that a little bit, it'll show you that this Navy is a pretty awesome place to learn.
After another successful year of Indy's many cruises around the world, it was time to rest for the remaining months. As the cool months of fall left us and the cold months of winter approaches, Indy returned home after 6 port visits and over 48,000 miles, racking up some pretty impressive numbers. Take a look. But this mighty warship, including her awesome capabilities, would be useless without her greatest strength, her citizens, the people. Here on Independence, we have a little phrase we live by, where people make the difference, and it still holds true. Young, dedicated, hardworking sailors and Marines are independents. They have volunteered to leave their home and to serve their country halfway around the world. As each workday draws to a close, each sailor returns to their at-sea home. For some, it's a stateroom, but for many others, it's simply a 6-foot by 3-foot rack. As they sleep, others stand watch and take up the tasks that must be done. 24 hours a day, every single second India's underway. Planes land above while engines churn below. USS Independence, airport, city, office, and home steams on.
As the son of a sailor, I went out on the sea for adventure, expanding the view of the captain and crew like a man just released from indenture. As a dreamer of dreams and a traveling man, I have chalked up many a mile, read dozens of books about heroes and crooks, and I learned much both of their style. Son of a son, son of a son, son of a son of a sailor, son of a god, load the last ton, one step ahead of the jailer. Now way in the near future, southeast of disorder, you can shake the hand of the mango man as he greets you at the border. And the lady she hails from Trinidad, island of the spices, salt for your meat and cinnamon sweet, and the rum is for all your good vices. Haul the sheet in as we ride on the wind that our forefathers harnessed before us. Hear the bells ring as the tide rigging sings. It's the son of a gun of a chorus. Where it all ends, I can't fathom, my friends. If I knew, I might toss out my anchor. So I'll cruise along, always searching for songs. Not a lawyer, a thief, or a banker, but a son of a son, son of a son, son of a son of a sailor, son of a gun, load the last ton, one step ahead of the jailer. I'm just the son of a son, son of a son, son of a son of a sailor. The sea's in my veins, my tradition remains. I'm just glad I don't live in a trailer. Jan, I know what you're thinking. That now's as good as any juice start drinking.
Hey, Scotty,
yeah,
what's it gonna be?
One gin and tonic sounds mighty, mighty good to me. But man, I know I gotta go. It's the same thing every time. But I don't think another drink's gonna make me lose my mind. So I think about my next drink. And it's you and me, and the father makes three tonight. Yeah. But I know this can be more. He wanders to and fro. Isn't my favorite watering hole. I says, hey, Mo, how you doing? Where have you been? He says, I've been fine with my whiskey, wine, and gin. But man, I know I gotta go. It's the same thing every time. But I don't think another drink's gonna make me lose my mind. So I think about my next drink. And it's you and me